Alrighty, you guys, we are back. For those of you who are just now tuning in, maybe you're on your lunch break. I am Jaira Nicole, and this is the Jaira Nicole Show every Tuesdays from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. I am going to go ahead and add our next two guests on the show on the screen, so give me just a second to do that. Hello, you guys.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you guys today?
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for taking time to come on the show today. I just want to open up the floor to you guys to go ahead and just introduce yourselves, and then we will dive into the conversation from there.
Awesome. Well, just really quick, babe, do you want to share the personal story?
Okay, I'm Kevin Thompson. My wife, Marcy Thompson. Get that out of the way real quick. The personal story is we met back in 2009. I was on a trip to Utah with a friend of mine for his birthday, and I met her at a wine tasting party.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna drink wine, but I was there, and while I was being a host to a house full of people that I didn't even know, and well, at the end of the evening, I saw her and I was serving everybody around the house, and so we talked for a little bit, and I walked her to her car and asked her if I could give her a kiss goodnight, and then the next day I met her at a festival before our plane left, and I told her, if you're ever in Dallas, look me up. I'm a good tour guide. And
wow, I'll take you up on that tour guide.
So she took me up on it, and we dated long distance for a little over a year.
Wow.
You're out of Texas.
Every other weekend.
I don't want to hear anything about geographically.
When people say, oh, you can't date because they live in Fort Worth or they live in another town 100 miles away. We dated 1,200 miles apart. We saw each other every other weekend.
Wow.
For a year. So yeah that what that helped us do is get to know each other on a heartfelt level to where we literally talked on the phone 2 to 3 hours every night and really got to know each other at a really deep level from the very get-go. So that was the kickoff of our relationship. And here we are now, 11 years later, 12 years later. Yeah.
That is incredible. That is just so incredible, and it's one of those romance stories that kind of just make you go like, oh, like, oh, But I'm so glad to have you guys on the show today because I find it so fascinating. First, let me just say minimalism, the word in general in itself. So I remember it a couple of years ago, it kind of started to trend, right? And I had people saying like, oh, I'm going to try to be a minimalist, blah, blah. But a lot of people didn't actually stick with it. They kind of did it for trend. But then I came across you guys and you live your life this way, and then you found a way to combine your passions as well. So tell us a little bit more about minimum metal art. I don't know who wants to start, Kevin or Marcy, and how this came to be, the story behind minimal metal art. And then from there, can you guys talk about how you define minimalism? Because I think a lot of people define it differently. Some people don't quite understand it. So how do you guys see it? And why did you choose to live your life as minimalists?
Well, I think the first thing, it kind of, I would preface it a little bit off of the words of your last speaker when we just came in, and she's like, and it's freedom, and it was freedom from this and freedom. And she was just on fire, right? But that's what minimalism helps you do, is it creates this newfound freedom for you to look at different space in your life. Now, albeit it could be in your house, right?
Right.
Kitchen towels. It could be pretty basic.
Right.
Or it could be clearing out the garage for a lot of guys. It could be, what was it, the wheels on the ground you were sharing? Or
a friend of mine in California, he was one time a few years back, he goes, Kevin, I looked around, and he says, I looked at how many tires I had on the ground. What do you mean tires on the ground? He says, I had an RV, I had a boat, had a couple motorcycles, had trailers. And he says, I started looking around at all these things, that everything that had tires had things on them that I had to maintain, that took up time and effort and money to just maintain. And it was sucking a lot of his life out of him just in the upkeep of those things. And he started to downscale those kind of things out of his life and became much happier and much freer in the meantime.
So I think really minimalism, it allows you to kind of restructure your space, your time, what's important. I think a lot of times, a lot of the different minimalists that I researched over the 2 years before I wrote this book, a lot of them will reference that you find greater joy. And I do believe that. But I think when you unpack the items that minimalism can bring to your life, I think you find greater significance and you actually find more time, right? Because you're not focused on managing so many other things. You have a little bit more time. And that's how, I think that's how the art really was able to come forward. And of course the book. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So just kind of basically reducing and just kind of saying, okay, I want to have, you know, more free times. It seems like it kind of fosters more creativity. Would you guys agree? Being able
Absolutely.
to, you guys be able to have, you know, have this business now. And then, like you said, you write a book, you're selling your artwork. I mean, it's incredible and it's amazing. So how did you guys come up with the name? How long have you guys been doing this? And I guess whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Name wise?
That was
well, I think what really came up with the name was, number one, it's metal, right, which makes it unique. But minimal really spoke to me because when we were kind of trudging toward the path of minimalism and the art was so minimalistic looking, and it just really spoke to me that way. And in the frames are on the back, so it's really a minimal metal art.
Right.
The minimalist approach, the fact that that we just the metal itself. Are you wanting to know how it came about, the whole metal?
Yes, metal art. Yes.
Well, I'm 60 years old. When I was 3 years ago at 57, I was asking God for a new direction in my life. My faith plays a very important part into the metal art because that is the core behind it. And I was asking God for a new direction in my life. And at my age, I wasn't so much a very big attribute to corporate America per se, but I was wanting a new direction. And I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, but never an artist. And I'll get to that on an artist part here in a minute. It's crazy. And I was asking for a new direction. And my dad was a machinist and mechanic by trade, and I was a gearhead from way back. So I'm very familiar about being around a garage, and I've done welding and grinding and all that, but never anything for grind designs. And I had some metal one day and I was grinding on it, and all of a sudden I was grinding some patterns. I went, oh, that looks kind of cool. Not even knowing. Can I back up and say, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, Kevin, tell me the top 1,000 things you might be doing at 60, art would not be one of them, because I didn't have an artistic bone in my body, I thought. So I asked for, this idea and motion in my life. And then I started grinding on the metal, and I saw these different grind patterns coming out, and they looked kind of cool. Yeah. Then I started flame painting them and throwing that on top of them. And then one thing led to another. And then after a while, I was seeing things come about. And then all of a sudden, these grind designs would come to me in the night, and I would just like, wow, I got to grind that. And I'd go out there and I'd start grinding on the metal, and I'd be like, I know these cool designs would start popping up. And then God was inspiring me with these ideas and these grind patterns. And then we started going to art shows, and then one thing led to another. And here we are, and we're just, it's going great.
Although I have to say though, the first time he came into the kitchen, and he's like, hey babe, I just made this in the garage. And I was like, what? Where did that come from? I said, I think you refine the metal as much as it's refining you.
And that's it. The metal refined me as much as I refined it. And that was through the process of like the flame painting, because the flame painting in the metal represents.
You see it behind us too.
And this is the type of stuff we do, to where in the Word of God, they have a thing called the refiner's fire, where people were in ancient days up to modern days, the way they refine gold is they take gold and they heat it up to real high temperatures. And as the impurities rise to the top, they scrape off the top, which is called the dross. And that's how you get that pure 24 karat gold. And with my metal art, as I apply the heat, they start out in the lower grades and the lower colors, like the ambers. And as you apply more and more heat, you move into your violets and then your sapphire blues, and you get to that high silver blue at the highest, most intense part. And a lot of that is what God does in our life. As he brings the things out of our life and brings them to the surface, as he brings them up, as we're being more and more refined, we become where we look more like God and God looks more like us. And that's how and then he just scrapes the impurities off our life. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong process that you go through. And that's how the metal, as she says, I define the metal and the metal defines me.
Wow, that's incredible. That's like so amazing how you guys were able, and I love how you're able to kind of like put it metaphorically to, to help us understand exactly how your faith plays a role, and it kind of mirrors like everyday life. The things we go through is just a process, and so I love what you just said. So my next question for you both is, what's kind of the reaction that you guys typically get whenever you're talking to someone and they're just like, oh, you guys are minimalist? Like, why are you guys minimalist? Or what are some of the things that you hear, maybe critics who kind of see, because I've heard people say like, oh, well, minimalist is a thing that rich people do. I don't know if you guys heard people say that, but a lot of people are like, oh, if you're poor, you can't be a minimalist because you don't have, you need things, you don't have enough money to just kind of let other things go. So my curiosity is like, number one, what's been your reaction? And then number two, what would you say to people who are kind of like, maybe they see minimalism as something that's silly? What would you say to those people?
Well, I think I'll share just a couple of things.
Sure.
But I think most importantly, myself for minimalism, I think the funny one is when we first initially went to the tiny house show in Dallas.
Oh man.
It was so awesome. It was fun. And we had all these experiences there, and people would share different things that they're doing. And of course, you can see all the tiny houses and life experiences that people are utilizing, which just makes you think. So if you've never been to one of those shows, as they open up, we would highly recommend it.
Truly eye-opening.
It is. It's truly eye-opening. And then I think probably the most fun comment that we've heard is, and then I write about it in my book. I'm like, no, I do not live in a minivan. And, and I have 2 dogs and a cat, and so there's no way. No, let's just clarify that right now. But,
how small a house do you live in? How minimal is your house?
So, but I think, like, for instance, in my book, I'll share about it, but I always say it's like the 3 bears, right? So our first initial house that we felt was too small. And then we moved to the supersized house out in Richardson. It was beautiful. It was like almost 3,000 square feet. But now we live in 1,600. Is that a minimalist version? I don't know, but it works perfect for us. And so I think that's what minimalism really becomes, is somebody who's defining it themselves. What is your season? Because if you're a single person and you're in a season that you don't want to manage a lot, well, 800 square feet maybe is what you want, right? I don't know. So, or if you're a family of 7, you're going to look different from what a family of 2 is. And so I really think along this minimalism path that people look at is, don't let other people define what minimalism is to you. Create your own path, create your own comparison, right? Because I think that's at the heart of what minimalism helps to not remove, because you have to battle with it daily, but it definitely helps to make yourself more secure in what your decisions are. You're not comparing yourself against everybody else around you.
Right.
You're just living your life in this moment of not complete tranquility and peace, but there's a lot more peace every day because you have less to contend with. Like, I have fewer apps on my phone. I try to have fewer emails in my inbox. Just different things, right? I mean, you manage your time differently. If you don't manage your time, then your time's going to manage you. And minimalism, I think, really helps you to focus on those things.
And the other thing is, with minimalism, a lot of people, they not so much you have to be a rich person, but they think, oh, if you're minimalist, you got to get rid of everything. No, you don't. You have things, but the survey around has been. National survey is the average person. You ready for this number? The average person has, on average, 300,000 things in their house. Now I'm talking right down to your silverware, your sheets, your blankets, pins, and all that. But I mean, that number is staggering. It doesn't mean you got to live with 50. But I like to use the analogy: buy once, cry once. What minimalists usually do is you reprioritize self-control and discipline in your life, but you wait for the right opportunity and you buy something that's worthwhile that will last you. And I'll give you an example, recent example. We wanted to get a nice set of steak knives, just 4 steak knives. So what we did was we bought Cutco. It's a very popular brand, but those 4 knives were $180 for 4 knives. See, people are sitting there going, "Oh my God, $180 for 4 knives!" But here's the thing about it. We'll never have to buy another set of steak knives the rest of our life. They'll last for 20 years. She has a knife from 15 years ago that's still sharp as can be, just one knife.
Right.
But you buy once, you cry once, ouch, that hurt, but you never have to replace it. And here's the other benefit of that. If you think over the course of your life for 20, 25 years of moving and all that, different set of steak knives that you may bought and stuff like that, you bought subpar quality and you're replacing it. But at the end of the time, 20, 25 years from now, you probably maybe paid close to that anyway, but you were doing and living with subpar product. So it's not buy the best you possibly can, because trust me, there are knives out there that are much more expensive, and we're very frugal, but we're very prudent about what we buy. And another thing about minimalism, it makes you stop and think about what you're going to buy. It cuts out the impulse buying. You know, we just don't run out impulsively buy anything. We usually come home, think about it for a day. Then the next day, if it seems, and you hear this from financial planners too, as well,
Right.
that then you think about, okay, are we going to move forward with this purchase? And how is this going to serve us in the long run? And so if you buy quality, you buy fewer things of quality, in the end of the day, and in the end of you're better off, per se. We feel like.
Wow. That's awesome. So overall, would you say you guys' financial plans, maybe when you first got together and how you are now, has completely changed? Kind of.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. Yeah, yes, it has.
I think it's really fascinating what you meant when you said it allows you to have, I think, Marcy, you said this about self-control and discipline. And then Kevin, how you said it cuts out the impulse buy. Because of course, when we have constant advertisements, whether it's on social media or commercials, it's always communicating to us, you need this, you need that, you need that. And so you just kind of think, okay, well, if I don't have it, I'm going to be left out, or, just things like that. So I think that's really interesting. And I'm kind of curious. I wish I would have been a minimalist in college, because, a lot of college students are like, we're broke. We don't have full-time jobs yet. We don't have any money. Like, that would have been a great approach.
It's crazy because, I think of my time in college, I'm thinking, maybe I was a minimalist, right? Because we didn't have much.
But you weren't.
I would say in college, even though in college, as a college student, you may not have a lot of money because you're not working a full-time job, but you're spending time going out to uptown Dallas with friends, buying this drink, doing different things like that, and, trying to get different clothes for the latest, cotillion or ball or something like that. And I just think I could have cut back on so much now that I'm sitting here, talking to you guys.
It's a different season.
Right.
I think we can all attest to where we are now. If we're out of that age, college age was a crazy age.
Right.
It was the age of defining.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on all counts as far as that's concerned.
For sure. So my next question for you guys is, I want to get your thoughts about, since we've been in a pandemic, and then since you guys are here in Texas and we had the Texas storms, did you guys feel like because you were a minimalist, you were better prepared? Because when the pandemic first happened, a lot of people, they didn't know what to do with themselves, right? You couldn't go out, you couldn't do this. And a lot of people found themselves bored. They needed entertainment. I know a lot of mental health kind of skyrocketed, and people were, taking their own life, even young children, because they didn't know what to do with themselves. And I feel like, I would imagine, as minimalists, you guys were probably better prepared than most of us. But I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that. Would you agree with my statement? Would you disagree? Why or why not?
I would agree, only because, just for example purposes, I think even though it was crazy for all of us, certainly a challenge, right? It's kind of scary. And then as it all was kind of unveiling itself. But I think after we progressed, into it, I actually launched my book last year, right? So, and that was during COVID. And then both of us became certified mental health coaches in 2020. So we're helping others, right, in that form or fashion. So with regards to the art and with regards to the book, I think it just spoke to that notion that we do have servants' hearts. And so I think with regards to COVID and everything that came about through that, I do feel that we had a little bit extra preparation
Right.
than
And
normal.
we were also, from the past, we were preppers. So we have water, we have propane tanks,
Okay.
we have a grill, we have dried beans. We keep a decent amount of food on hand just
Okay.
because
But
of
enough.
just enough. Yeah, just to where we're prepared. I mean, because the average person only has 3 to 5 days worth of food, and we.
Right.
From a long time ago, we didn't want that to happen to us. So we were, and that kind of plays into a minimalist lifestyle too. When you become a minimalist, you start thinking of things like that. There again, it takes you off of so much of the consumerism of the things that, the latest gadget to hang on your wall or to put in your purse or to put on your bedspread or whatever, to where, okay, how about if I just spend a little bit more time and money and energy to something that will serve me worthwhile, like if all of a sudden the water supply gets cut off,
Right.
electricity cut off, the grocery stores are wiped out. So we have a little bit of food on hand and looking that way, because I think a lot of times minimalism and preparedness run hand in hand with each other.
I would agree.
Just for us, it does. It just gives us that perspective. And after listening to some other minimalists, I hear that a lot of them do the same thing too.
Do the same thing. Wow. So what for you, this question is for you, Marcy. So you said that last year is when you decided to write your book. Tell us a little bit more, if you can give us a little bit more detail. I know you kind of brushed on it a little bit about why you wrote the book, the message in the book, and what people can take away from your book.
Yeah, well, I think at the heart of our book is the word discipline, because we get so much discipline in our lives, and it can be a little item, just getting up in the morning and making your bed. That could be your art of that could be discipline for you. Or it's, a financial challenge, marital challenges, divorce. I mean, we've had, between the two of us, many challenges. And I write about that, and I'm very transparent of it in the book, which is obsession. So I think at the heart of obsession, which actually means, if you've not heard of the word, it's the natural progression for a plant to release its leaves when they're dead leaves, or to bear fruit. So that notion spoke to me, and it kind of guided my journey through minimalism. And it took actually 2 years. So I started writing in 2018 and didn't publish it until 2020. And so it's a lot of research and a lot of details and stats, because I kind of have that in the background. But 3 words pretty much stuck in my head, like you'd have a record or a song in your head.
A record song, song record. For you younger people, remember those pieces of plastic vinyl that used to put them on a thing and it spin around? That's a record. Not a record down at the police department.
3 words: wisdom, clarity, and refinement. So clearly I needed some wisdom in that moment. But wisdom has been my directive, and clarity continues to come, as we're like, I like to say, self-development junkies. So like, I love to read. And so I read to him at night, and we, share thoughts and whatever for, I
love her reading to me. I think it's awesome.
So I think it really, wisdom, clarity, and refinement, and they all sync up to each other. And at the heart of minimalism, at the heart of the book, each of us is characters in it. And then it shares all the different people that kind of were along with us on the journey, and the story behind the art.
I love that. I love that. I can't wait to read that. And again, I just want to go ahead and let people know, if you're just now joining us, I'm with Kevin and Marcy, and their information is down at the bottom. If you're just now joining us, their Instagram, website. And so, Kevin, my question for you is, with your metal art, what do you use exactly for your inspiration? I know you mentioned earlier faith plays a big role in that, but can you kind of dive in and go into depth more about why that's so key, and what exactly you want people to take away from your art?
Well, starting off, I mean, the fact that it was faith-based in the first place, I get the inspiration from God. And I'm not trying to over spiritualize this, because trust me, I don't try to go out and over spiritualize everything. Okay. But that's where it's based on. I love the grind designs, and I love the fact that when I come up with some of these things, I don't even know what it is. Sometimes I'm going to grind before I start grinding. And just so you know, people are out there wondering what is it? It's cold rolled metal steel the 18 gauge cold roll that I grind with a grinder. But then I love the fact that my inspiration is sometimes I'll just won't even know what it is I'm going to grind. All of a sudden, these designs just start popping up.
Wow.
And that comes, and what inspires me a lot of times is when people say they want a certain design made. And I'll give you an example, like a touching story. It was what inspired me is when my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in early 2019 and passed away about 5 months after that. When I first got the news of it, I went out in the garage and I was just deep in tears and I was just deeply sobbing. And I ground this beautiful cross in the metal and I flamed it on a piece of stainless steel.
Wow.
And then I had a gal that really wanted to buy it. She says, Kevin, I love that piece. And, you know, part of me is thinking I shouldn't have sold it. But when I sold it to her and I told her the story behind it, she started crying. And then she reached out to me later and was just saying, Kevin, you know, she says, I was going through a very hard time in my life. And she says, I looked at it and she says, I absolutely love that piece of art. And she says, and when you told me your story and the comfort that it brought you after you made it and what it related to you, it really, really touched me and really brought me a lot of peace and satisfaction that it touches people. And when you share that with them, and I sign a scripture on every piece of art and I send it out with a blessing that I say, Lord, just bless this piece of art, bless whoever comes in contact with it, bless their household, their friends, their family, and everything around them. And I send it out with a blessing. And I'm inspired that people come back and when they say that, you know, that they've been blessed by it or that maybe they had blessings in their life, I'm just like, okay, this is cool. And that part is very inspiring to me. So there's a lot about it that inspires me.
Wow. So for you both, where do we go from here? Where do you guys see yourselves in minimal metal art, you know, 5, 10, 15 years down the line?
Well, I think after the launch of the book, and then of course, all of our art is available online. So he is constantly refreshing art that way, especially now during everything being closed down and the art shows aren't as prevalent. Although we are grateful because the second weekend of April will actually be, we've been invited or juried into the art show that's in McKinney, Texas that weekend. So we'll be out there. We usually do the large Deep Ellum art show every year. To give you an idea, in 2019, we did 32 different shows, art shows. So, you know, we're absolutely excited for stuff to start opening back up. And of course, we'll be that way. But on Facebook, we always have the event section there. So feel free to find out where we're going to be next.
And in 5 to 10 years, I'm hoping to two things. I want to go the way of just rigor commerce to where I could maybe get into like some like, you know, furniture stores like a Rooms to Go or Nebraska Furniture Mart, something like that, and where we can put it in there where they can use it for like staged art for when people, you know, how they stage rooms in there. This is how your room good. I'd like to get into the commercial end of things like that, and also
we're working with churches. In
churches, and we got these new big pieces, and the crosses are they're beautiful. I know that sounds self-serving. Please don't take it as that. It was the divine inspiration that I was really struggling with a new cross design, and the Lord just gave me a great cross design for 2021, and be able to where we can reach out to churches and share our art with the churches and our testimony and the fact that we're into mental health coaching to where we want to be able to minister as a couple to people, because there's a lot of hurting people out there, as you said. I mean, 2020 was a terrible year, horrible year for a lot of people, and a lot of pain and suffering going on out there. And I mean, we just want to help people.
Right.
We love talking to people. We love helping people.
Right. Absolutely. Have you guys found, you, Marcy, in terms of writing, and you, Kevin, that with everything like you just mentioned going on in 2020 and even 2021 within these first few months, there's, you know, I'm sure you guys saw the shooting in Boulder, Colorado that just happened yesterday. There's been a bunch of different mass shootings, the insurrection, just so many different things happening. And people are just like, have you guys found that writing and art is just kind of therapeutic in itself for maybe you both?
Well, I think as much as it's therapeutic for us, it's even more therapeutic to be able to share it with others. I'm grateful. I'm actually a contributing writer for 40 Dandelions magazine, so I get to write for them every month and share that gift. Yeah, but I think really it's therapeutic for both of us, but I think it's more therapeutic when we're able to share of ourselves with others.
Yes, it is a release too, because I could tell Marcia every once in a while, even though we're not doing art shows right now, I have a lot of art. I'm just like, I got to go grind. I got to go grind, because it is therapeutic. It is. I love what I do. You know, what is that old saying? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I absolutely love what I do, and it does not feel like work at all. Sometimes my body's a little tired, back's a little sore from grinding and lifting and all that. But at the end of the day, I absolutely love what I do, and I just feel very blessed and fortunate to finally have figured out my purpose in life and what really brings me to true fulfillment. And then it blesses other people too. Because I got to tell you that I can't tell you what joy it brings us when we go to a show and then somebody shows up and all of a sudden they come walking up on us with a big old smile on their face going, oh my God, I bought your art. I love it. I took it home. And everybody else loves it too. And I'm just, and like, it's beautiful. And I mean, that really makes you feel so good. Can I share a quick story with you?
Absolutely.
Real quick. We had a show not too long ago, and this couple bought a couple big pieces of art they wanted to put above their fireplace. And they were going back and forth, and they decided they were going to get a smaller piece, and they got these two big pieces. And I mean, they spent a decent amount of money, and you always want to make sure everybody's happy. You're thinking, wow, they're happy with it above their fireplace, because they didn't say a whole lot when they left. They didn't say, oh, we got to go. And they reached out to us about 2 weeks later, and they sent us a text. It was the coolest text, and said, we just want to thank you. And they sent us pictures of
It was awesome.
Above their fireplace, and said, you know what, we absolutely love this art. Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet you guys. We posted this on Facebook, and we got more likes on this than anything we ever posted on Facebook.
Wow.
I know. We're like, how cute is that?
And we looked at each other and went, woohoo, we loved it, you know? And when somebody walks away and they're truly happy and they're inspired and it brings them joy and peace, that is just the absolute icing on the cake for me.
Right. Absolutely. I can only imagine. And I feel like there's so many people who struggle trying to find their life purpose. And I will say, you know, when you don't feel like you're put here for, you know, for a reason, I just feel like that's when all the negativity and inner self-critic and all of that starts happening. So for you guys, what would you say, what would your advice be to, it doesn't matter if they're in college, if they're out, if they're going through some kind of midlife crisis and people still feel like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to find it. Marcy, what would you say? And Kevin, what would you say to those people?
I would say one of the taglines in my book that I share is master the ordinary, live the extraordinary. So master all those daily things that come in and vie for your time, or vie for the comparison, or vie for whatever else it is that, you know, you're trying to control or refine or give greater clarity to. And then really just focus on a little bit just about you, right? When you're going to see a psychiatrist, the first thing they tell you, now let's fix what's in the circle. So really, when you draw a circle around yourself and you fix what's in that circle and you really target what it is that you want to do in life, I think if you continue to research and see what minimalism is all about, it really is, when you unpack it, a very clear path to help you really seek some clarity in your life.
And Kevin, did you want to add, or what would you say to those people?
First and foremost, just be open for instruction. Be open for people to impart into your life. Be open. I mean, if you have faith, humble yourself before God and ask Him for direction in your life. Whatever power you believe in, ask for that. Reach to that high power and ask for direction. Like Marcia said earlier, it's 3 words that we live by: wisdom, clarity, and refinement. They build on each other. Solomon was considered the most wisest man in the Bible of all time. But what was the thing he asked for? He didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for gold. He asked for wisdom. And if you ask for wisdom, then what in the end of the story is, since he asked for the greater gift, God gave him everything.
Right.
And so if you ask for wisdom, just look for wisdom. And another thing is, have you ever heard that saying? People go, if you had all the money in the world and you didn't have to worry about another bill, you didn't have to pay for anything, what would you do with your life? And I'll be honest with you, I struggled with that for years, and it finally dawned on me. It came down to 3 words. What inspires me, if nothing else, what would I want to do with the rest of my life? It comes down to 3 words: talking to people. I love people. I love talking to people. I love inspiring people. I took a spiritual gift test many years ago, twice, 15 years apart, and different gifts. And the thing I scored off the charts on was exhortation, building up, cheerleader, whoop, whoop, rah, rah. You know, I just love it. I love inspiring people. I love telling people you can do it, you can make it. But ask for wisdom. Sorry, a little side note there. But just ask
Central.
Ask for wisdom. You ask for wisdom and just seek wisdom, because that is the cornerstone of everything in your life. If you just look for wisdom and ask for wisdom and actively seek it, that is the quickest way to find your purpose in life, is to seek wisdom.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you guys. Well, Kevin and Marcy, I have enjoyed having you both on the show so much. Thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show. For those of you who are wondering or just now tuned in, if you missed their interview, that's okay, because you can always go back and watch it. And their information is right here on the screen, their website, their Instagram. And I'm sure if any of you guys have a question for Kevin or Marcy, they'd be more than happy if you guys reach out to them. Really quickly, do you guys have, can you mention the event you guys have coming up just one more time for viewers?
Yeah. It's the second weekend of April. It's actually going to be posted on our Facebook page, but it'll be, again, the second weekend. It's up in McKinney. It's called Arts in Bloom, I believe is the official name. And we will be up there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
It's a great show. It'll be outside, beautiful setting, a lot of great art, a lot of great things to see and do. Good place to bring your kiddos and everything.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We'll definitely keeping up with you guys. And of course, I'd love to have you back on the show to update us with more things that you guys have been doing. And so thank you again so much. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too. All right, you guys, they were amazing. Such a lovely couple. I love people who are just everybody who's been on the show today, just so animated, vivacious, friendly, and just great conversation all around. There's so many things that I can learn from them. And like Kevin and Marcy said, you know, in terms of your finding your purpose, just continue to keep an open mind, and like she mentioned, asking God for wisdom and clarity. And who knows, maybe you guys want to give it a try being a minimalist. I'm going to try to go through my things. As I was talking to them, I'm thinking, what do I need to get rid of? And I already know there are going to be so many things that I need to get rid of, but I'm definitely going to be reaching out to them, asking them some questions for sure, and also be purchasing some art, because you guys, if you haven't seen their art, I encourage you to go on their Instagram and their website. It's a beautiful, and I think it's so amazing that Kevin was a self-taught artist, and he, just like he said, he doesn't even have the idea. He just starts and then boom, it's a masterpiece. Why don't I have that talent? I wish I could just start drawing or painting or just doing something, then boom, it's a masterpiece. But we all have different gifts and talents. So thank you guys so much for tuning in with Kevin and Marcy. I have our last guest for today on the show. Her name is Miss Brandy Alexandria. But before I bring her on, we're going to take a quick break, and then I will be right back with her. And she's going to talk about healing and overcoming self-trauma. And she has a lot of great things to say. So I'm super excited. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, you guys.